We just finished the installation of a 70 amp battery charger to the boat. We kept the 20 amp battery charger that came with the boat. So if I run the two battery chargers together, I can get 90 amps going in my house battery bank. You might say, why? Right? Well, batteries are a bucket that holds electrons, and that bucket will get empty. When that bucket's empty, you have to fill it back up again. Solar power obviously does that, but generally speaking, solar is going to be at a much slower rate. Battery chargers, put the current back in faster. Well, with batteries, if you starve them for too long, over long periods of time, and starving I mean by not giving them enough charge, they actually won't re-energize to 100% capacity each time. So you'll end up slowly killing your batteries over time. ABYC standards state that your battery charger should be a minimum of 10% of what your house battery bank is. So let's say you have the factory OEM batteries that came with the boat. There was 210 amp hour batteries. That's 220 amp hours total. That's why the boat comes with a 20 amp battery charger, because 20 amps is about 20% of 220 amp hours. Right? When we put the Firefly batteries in, they want a minimum of 20% charge, not 10%, which is the minimum standard for ABYC. And these are minimum numbers, right? So, who strives to be just at minimum, right? You always want to be better than minimum if possible. When you're out there at anchor and stuff, you want to get the most life expectancy for your batteries and the most capacity out of them. If you double the size of your battery bank and you don't double the size of your battery charger, then when you get back to the dock, it will take twice as long as normal to recharge those batteries. In addition, you will slowly starve them to death because they don't get enough current fast enough to actually re-energize back to 100%. Right, so it's really important to meet at least that 10% minimum. And like I said, the Firefly batteries we put in, we started with two of them. I just replaced the two factory batteries with two Fireflies. That gave me still the same 220 amp amp hour for the batteries with the 20 amp charger that came with the boat. So I put an additional 25 amp battery charger. It was this little Victron thing. I just plugged it into the electric outlet that was underneath for the grill and used that. That worked for a while, but when that gave me 45 amps total going into 220 amp hours of Firefly batteries. So that was the 20% minimum. When I went to the third battery, things changed because now I needed to get up to 70 amps total, right? So I ended up shopping around. I found a Victron Skyless 70 amp battery charger that I really liked. It's waterproof, and I was looking on the boat with where I could put it. And this is where my challenge was: where could I put an additional battery charger? Upgrading the ABSO battery charger, they only make them up to 60 amps, and I had to get to at least 70. So I knew that wasn't going to work. So I finally found a spot in the port lazarette all the way aft. Was a great spot to put the battery charger, and that's where we ended up putting the Victron. And then the size of the battery charger really didn't matter because it's a pretty big space back there, and I just shoved it as far back as I could in that port lazarette. So what this means now is I can run the 20 amp charger that came with the boat and the 70 amp charger that I put in and get 90 amps going into the house battery bank. Firefly batteries are somewhat unique that they'll take what's called a 0.5C charge rate. That means 1/2 of its capacity they'll take as a charge rate. So with the three of them, I technically could feed them upwards of 170 amps, and they would love every bit of that. I can't generate 170 amps going to them. And I don't have to, I just got to get to at least 70. So having the two, I can get to 90. That allows enough pressure of the electrons going back into them to re-energize them back to full capacity so that they don't slowly die over time, right, and provide less and less longevity out of them. So installation of the battery charger, I can say of all the upgrades I've done, the most challenging. You got battery chargers have two sides to them, 120 volt AC and then the 12 volt DC side. All that cable had to be reran. First it was find out how I could run the cable from the AC panel in the cave to get it back to the port lazarette. Then you got to go run 10 gauge marine grade AC wire which is white, which is your neutral, hot is your black, green is a ground, and then an additional ground wire for the chassis, because it also has to be grounded to the boat as well. All that terminates behind the AC panel. Get that all tied in nice and neat. It's all got to be protected in black split loom. Can't mix the AC wire with the DC wire. And then the DC side, right, I put an 80 amp terminal fuse for the wire that I added from the power post that goes to the battery on the 6 gauge wire that runs back to the battery charger, and then wire all that into the battery charger. And then because the battery charger is tucked all the way aft, I had to custom build a shelf to mount it on so it would fit in there correctly, which you'll see in the video, and get all the connections waterproof for all the wires, how they go into it. Now, because of where the Victron battery charger is, I really can't get to the control panel on top of it, and I knew that going into it. And unfortunately, for whatever reason, Victron does great with all their stuff with Bluetooth and everything. The battery charger doesn't have Bluetooth. There's no way to look at it other than that control panel. With the exception, if you run a network cable from it, it has the option for that. It'll run to what's called a Servo GX, which is another Victron device. So I bought that and plugged the Servo in, and the Servo is wireless to the chart plotter up front, and it's also wireless to my phone. And that actually lets me adjust the configuration and everything of the battery charger. You might say, well, why is that important? Why do you care about your battery charger? You plug it in, you walk away. Most of the time, that would be true. However, consider that at 70 amps DC to the batteries, it can pull upwards of 10 amps coming from the AC side. So here we are. I'm filming this at Dagmar. We're in dry dock right now. I don't get 30 amp hookups at Dagmar's. I got a 115 amp outlet that's got every other boat in the brother plugged in these pedestals. I need a way to be able to reduce the amount of amperage that battery charger will take, so I can downgrade it and say, I know you can take 10 amps from shore power, only take 5 or only take 6, right? And that way it'll prevent me from tripping breakers on the when I don't get a 30 amp connection. But at every marina I usually get 30 amps. I just go and I wired it in, so all I have to do is just use one of the accessory outlets on the AC panel, move a button, just like you would do, just like you turn on the battery charger today. I just have another switch. I turn that on for the Skyla, and I walk away and it charges the batteries. And the rest of the video then is to show how we did the installation for the Victron Skyla 70 amp battery charger.
Again, thanks for watching, and don't forget to like the video, subscribe to our channel, and hit the bell for notifications so you get notified when I upload a new video. And until the next video, stay tuned for more channel surfing.